So guys, this is a story with regards to Dritan Rexhepi, who coordinated a sophisticated transnational crime federation of Albanian drug traffickers, controlling the flow of cocaine from South America to Europe, from departure to distribution. He was the ringleader of an organization called Compania Bello, which was one of the most active cocaine trafficking networks in Europe, and they were dismantled. On September the 15th last year, hundreds of police officers, including special intervention teams and in close cooperation with prosecutors and investigative officers with the support of Europol and Eurojust, carried out coordinated raids against Kompania Bello. And this is a story on the leader, Dritan Rexhepi. Besides an extensive rap sheet, Dritan Rexhepi has also built up a legendary reputation in the criminal underworld because he boasts more prison escapes than the infamous Mexican drug lord Joaquim Guzman Loera, also better known as El Chapo. One of these prison escapes can be recalled back to 2006, where Dritan Rexhepi was in the Albanian port of duress. He was being interrogated when the door to his holding cell was left open during a break in questioning, and reports say that Regepi walked into the corridor and told the officer on guard, "They're finished with me," and he was allowed to leave. It was a costly lapse, giving rise to a career in which Regepi, who is now 40 years old, built an international crime syndicate that has funneled hundreds of millions of euros worth of cocaine from South America to Europe, even as Regepi has sat in a prison cell in Ecuador since 2014. 14 years later, last year in 2020, the police came knocking, arresting 20 suspects in coordinated raids in 10 countries in Europe and the Middle East to dismantle the Albanian crime syndicate, Compania Bello. According to Europol, the European Union's police agency, cocaine importers had traditionally worked separately from the wholesalers and gangs distributing the drug, but Compania Bello ditched the model and controlled the whole chain. The operation to bring it down, codenamed Los Blancos, followed a 5-year investigation led by Italian prosecutors in Florence and is considered the biggest of its kind ever against an Albanian-speaking organized crime. In court documents, Italian prosecutors identified Regepi as the undisputed capo of Compania Bello, with access to endless quantities of cocaine. Compania Bello was described by Albanian prosecutors as a union of criminal operators. They said it certainly poses a threat to public order and security in Albania, and we're dealing with a union of operators with huge criminal economic potential. So what we're going to do today is we're going to discuss the career of Regepi. So going by the name of Gramos, Regepi's criminal career dates back to the 1990s, where he was suspected of working as a contract killer. In 2013, he was sentenced in his absence by a Tirana court to 25 years in prison for the 1998 murder of 2 people, one of them a police officer. Regepi has also been convicted of cocaine trafficking in Italy and armed robbery in Belgium. And as I said, he's also built up that legendary reputation that he's actually had more prison escapes than El Chapo. After his holding cell walkout in duress in 2006, Regepi was arrested 2 years later in the Netherlands and extradited to Italy, where he had been sentenced to jail for cocaine trafficking. In 2011, he and 2 other inmates escaped from prison south of Milan using a saw to cut the prison bars and bed sheets as a rope to reach the ground. Picked up later that year in Spain, Regepi was extradited to Belgium but again escaped from prison in Antwerp. Then, in June 2014, Regepi was arrested in Quito, the capital of Ecuador, as part of a police drugs bust in which 278 kilos of cocaine was seized. And at this moment in time now, he's currently serving a 13-year prison sentence, but he is still wanted in Albania, Italy and Belgium. Albanian authorities accused Regepi of ordering and arranging from his prison cell the abduction of a 49-year-old man in central Albania in February last year. The victim has never been found and is presumed dead. Italian prosecutors accused Regepi of ordering at least 2 other murders while in prison in Ecuador and Albania. Responding to the abduction charge in February last year, Regepi, speaking from his prison cell, told an Albanian crime journalist that he had never been involved in kidnapping or contract killings. He recalled how he had enrolled to study law at a university in Tirana in 2005, and he had said he had been forced into drug trafficking to survive after being charged with murder and escaping jail. He said, "I had 2 options: to surrender to an unjust and rotten system in Albania, which would lead to life imprisonment, or to seek a second chance to do something else with my life. That's why I got into drug trafficking." So Compania Bello was a cartel made up of 14 Albanian crime organizations involved in drug trafficking and was in operation since at least 2014 in Ecuador, the Netherlands, Belgium, Albania and Italy. They were a transnational crime federation, and the aim of Compania Bello was to extend control over international drug trafficking and exponentially increase the profits of its members. Benefiting from a privileged relationship with South American cocaine producers, Compania Bello enabled its members to import and distribute large quantities of drugs from South America via Dutch and Belgian ports. Also part of the syndicate were two major crime groups headed by suspects identified by prosecutors only by names Jimmy and Retty. Based in the Netherlands, Retty's criminal group was described as a go-between involved in the drug distribution in Europe. Jimmy's organization also had direct links to drug cartels in South America. Other players identified by Italian prosecutors included brothers Gerti and Edmund Marcu, who were accused of trafficking cocaine from the Netherlands to Italy, Germany and other European states, as well as Eldi Disdari, whose group was involved in moving large quantities of drugs from Dutch ports. Using encrypted communication networks and codes, Compania Bello organized the exchange of drugs couriers between members and the recruitment of drivers, while members exchanged information on police investigations and court cases and swapped ideas for future activities. The cartel facilitated cash payments and members benefited from a network of corrupt public officials in charge of monitoring cargo in ports at various stages of the drug shipment's journey from South America. Compania Bello boasted a solid hierarchy, with cartel leaders recruiting foot soldiers within the Albanian community in the Netherlands and Italy. Loyalty was paramount. The leaders and promoters of the organization, thanks to their operational capacities and capacity to intimidate, enforced a pact of silence in case any of the collaborators were arrested. And if this unwritten pact was not respected, serious consequences would follow, as they would take revenge against family members in the Netherlands, Italy, or Albania. Regepi's success rested on his relationship with an Ecuadorian trafficker, Cesar Emilio Montenegro Castillo, also known as Don Monte, who was linked to a Colombian drug cartel, as well as El Chapo Sinaloa in Mexico. And as we know, Sinaloa is one of the largest drug trafficking organizations in the world. In direct contact with Regepi, the Ecuadorians organized the import of cocaine to Europe. Each shipment is organized with the 50-50 modality, meaning that for each load they sell to the Albanians, they add another equal amount on their account, which on arrival is entrusted to criminal elements in the Netherlands for distribution. Regepi ensured his good standing with Montenegro Castillo, not just because of his proven abilities as a drugs trafficker, but because he had managed to compete with Chinese criminal organizations in the transfer of drug money. Generally, cash payments for cocaine in the Netherlands and UK are then paid to traffickers in South America by people linked to these Chinese organizations, without the physical transfer of money between Europe and South America. But the Chinese charge high rates of commission. Regepi sought to cut out the middleman by using cash couriers and multiple small transfers via Western Union. In one case, after a tip-off by Italian police, 2 Albanian couriers were detained at one of Ecuador's airport carrying €350,000 in cash. Regepi's CV undoubtedly shows his criminal drive, involvement and capacity to manage a major trafficking operation worldwide, despite his status as an inmate. In January 2017, Regepi collaborated with Montenegro Castillo and a subordinate of the Ecuadorian trafficker known as Antrax to ship hundreds of kilos of drugs on containers from the port in Ecuador to Antwerp. The floor of each container was opened, stuffed with packets of cocaine insulated with foam. The floor was then welded back into place. The drugs would then be extracted when the legal goods sitting on top arrived at their destination. Italian police, eavesdropping on their communications, notified Ecuadorian authorities to intercept the containers. The drugs, however, got through. So Antrax wrote to Regepi and told him someone had tipped off the authorities about the cargo, but everything went well. They saw nothing, and it has already sailed. The shipment was destined for an important group of Albanian traffickers, and Regepi and Antrax talked excitedly about what it might mean for the future. Regepi told Antrax, "Look, friend, if we get along well with those people, you won't know where to stash the cash, believe me." The day after the ship sailed, Regepi and Antrax crunched the numbers. From their conversation, cops learnt that Regepi had bought 371 kilos of cocaine at $4,500 per kilo, for a total cost of 1.63 million. 1.2 million was prepaid. The drugs could be sold on to wholesalers in Europe at between 22 to 24,000 euros per kilo, netting Regepi roughly 8 million euros in revenues. Estimating income from drug trafficking is notoriously difficult, but for the purpose of asset freezes, prosecutors estimated that the organisation distributed at least 50 kilos per week, resulting in an annual turnover of just over 70 million euros. It was believed that the true numbers may even be higher, given investigators found that the group sometimes sold up to 50 kilos per day at 27,000 euros per kilo. Prosecutors believe Regepi trafficked at least 2,400 kilos of cocaine in 2016 and 3,654 kilos in 2017. With an average wholesale price of 22,500 euros per kilo, the revenues for the 2 years are estimated at over 130 million euros. However, that's just an estimate. As for the real amount of drugs, it was believed that it could be higher, taking into account the quantities of drugs that the Italian authorities could not seize or document. So guys, that's a story on an Albanian kingpin who is behind the cocaine distribution from South America to Europe. Let me know what you guys think. It's your boy GT. Keep it locked, keep it real.